All right, so today is lesson 3. It's a rainy Wednesday, rainy September Wednesday. Let's have a look at what's going on. We've kind of eased into things so far. Um, so today we're going to do some more work with NPM. We're going to take a look at a document that outlines some coding, some style conventions for Node. We're also going to do a little review of some of the basic JavaScript kind of concepts that are going to be things that we're going to be using regularly in this class. Okay? I will give out both Lab 1 and Quiz 1. They're both going to be, you'll have a week to do both of them, so I will go over both of those things. You don't have to submit them either of them until next Tuesday. And then we're going to practice some basic routing, HTTP routing in Node using an NPM package that's known as Connect. So talk about a bunch of different things today. So we talked about NPM last week. Can anybody give us a quick reminder of what NPM is and why we use it?
It is the Node Package Manager.
Yep, that's right, Bradley. Thank you. And what's the point of it?
Just let me check my notes for a second. Okay, just
Yeah, exactly, Adam. So it allows us to find and install extensions for Node.js applications.
right.
Um, so we used a couple, yeah, we're basically using, as Booger mentioned, extensions, or these are external libraries. So last week we worked with two. One of them was a development utility that we installed globally called NodeMon that we can use in any project. And then we also used the accounting package that we used for formatting numbers formatting numbers as currency. So we're going to use a bunch of other NPM packages through the course, and you'll probably want to discover additional ones that you might use in your assignment. So today we're going to work with a package called Connect. We'll get to that in a little bit. But what I want to do first is have you do a little bit of research. It's a pretty simple activity. So if you go into your lesson 3 folder, the second item here says NPM Useful Packages Spreadsheet. So I want you to click this link to open it up in a new browser tab. Now, it'll open up. Please don't download the file. I want you to modify this file in your browser. This way we can all be working on the file together at the same time. By default, it says viewing here. If you change this viewing option to editing, you'll now be able to edit the document in your browser. So I'm going to go back to Blackboard. I'm going to show you the instructions. Pretty simple instructions, and I'll give you an example. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to npmjs.com, which is the Node Package Manager site. And I want you to look up one package that you think might be useful to use during this course. And then I want you to add that package to the spreadsheet. And you'll put your name, the name of the package you found, and just a short explanation of what this package is so that everybody else in the class will understand what the package is. So for example, I'll do an example. So on line 1 here, there, I couldn't see line 1 before. So I'll put in my name. So last week we used accounting, and the purpose was number and currency formatting. So I want you to go to the NPM site, find any useful extension package, and then just do what I did. Put your first name here in column A, put the name of the package in column B, and then just add a brief description. So this way together, we're going to compile a list of packages that might be useful for you to use or for us to use during the course. Okay, so take a minute now. Scoot over to think I put it in as .com. I'll update the link. Go over to, oh yeah, it is npmjs.com. So use the search, find some package that you think you may want to use at some point during the course, and then add it to the list. Okay, so Bradley found vote tally, which uses Angular to show vote totals. Great. Okay, so Booger found Axios, so useful. Booger, maybe you could just explain even just a little more. What does Axios actually do? What does it do with HTTP requests? Okay, Cameron found photo swipe. Which is, yeah, if we want to make an image gallery that will work on both mobile and desktop. That's great, Cameron. Haven't heard of that one. Excellent. So you got 12 people in the room right now, including myself. Like to see everybody who's in the class list, add their name and add a package here. Okay, Booger, yeah, so we can make HTTP requests. So often this would be used to call external APIs. Right? So Bradley, I think the name got wiped out. So I'm just going to put it in as vote tally because I think that's the actual name.
Right. Well, it's just I'm on NPM right now, and when I typed in vote tally, it showed at momsfriendly.devco/vote tally.
I got
I wasn't
it.
sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I had to put in the full name or not. So
You know what, Bradley? It actually is this way. You're correct. It's just Excel isn't showing it properly. But if we search for vote tally, we can find it. So I think we're good here. Jillian,
okay.
the link is right here in the lesson 3 folder. This second item, NPM useful packages spreadsheet. I'll put the link in the chat as well, but it's right here on Blackboard. Everything that you need to access will always be on Blackboard. All right, so Jason found a cloud source for handling images to allow us to crop, resize, or rename. So that's super useful, right? If we were going to allow users to upload images, oftentimes, if they upload them, so let's say from their mobile device, the dimensions are huge. So if we've got some package like Cloudinary that's going to let us resize or crop them, that's going to make those images much more useful. So Chris found modal so that we can open up a modal window. Excellent. Rajmeet found the design package. Adam found stat function. So that's great. So if we want to calculate things like, mean, median, maybe standard deviation, we could find that in the stat functions package. That's great. We probably have a whole bunch of packages from third-party providers like social media or authentication providers. So if you're not sure what to look up, you could check one of those. Like Google, for example, is going to have they're going to be a whole number of Google-related NPM packages for implementing different Google functionality. Okay, that's great to have the links in here as well. So I will leave this spreadsheet up, and we might come back to it and refer to it in subsequent lessons, or you can use this when you go to build your assignments, your first and second assignments, which we'll get into probably next week. Okay, so Fatima has listed a package called fast sort. I don't know that one, so I'm imagining that's going to allow us to sort data easily. So Jillian found Scribbletune. Well, that's interesting. Creating music using JavaScript and Node, and then being able to export it as an MIDI file. Very neat. Hadn't heard of that one.
It kind of reminds me of what Nintendo Wii did with that tablet, where some of the video games had you drawing with a stylus to do stuff. I didn't use it. I mean, I have Wii, Wii U, Wii Fit, Wii Sports, and now the Nintendo Switch and DS's, but it's quite an interesting concept, and that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
good find.
Okay, so fast sort lets us sort data, gives us options, and it uses TypeScript. We will get into playing around with TypeScript later in the course because we need TypeScript in order to work with Angular. All our Angular code is actually written in TypeScript, which is a form of JavaScript. All right, so I'm seeing some useful packages here. If you haven't contributed to this list, then please go ahead and add a useful package and a description on here. I'll leave this. We'll maybe come back and check this a little bit later in the class, see if there's anything else here that we should look at. Now, and using NPM comes with a warning. There's an infamous story about NPM and the 17 lines of JavaScript that broke the internet. Has anybody heard this story before or have any idea what this is about? It's something that we should all be aware of if we're going to be using NPM in our projects. So I'm going to open up this link. So this happened about 5 years ago. Yeah, I won't read it to you. I put the link here. You can read the full story, but I can give you a bit of a summary of what happened. So, and the headline kind of tells it. A coder unpublished his 17-line NPM package, and this package was a dependency of a package that was used in tens of thousands or millions of websites. So here's what happened. This is 5 years ago. So this developer created an NPM package that he called Kick. And it was a very small library. It was only 17 lines of JavaScript. So he published it on NPM, and this package was used by one of the largest packages on NPM. It was used by a package called Babel, which, if you can see how popular it is, 34 million installs in the last week. So Babel was actually using his little library called Kick. The problem is there was another company called Kick Interactive, spelt the same way. And they contacted him and said, you can't call your package KIK because that's our company name and we've trademarked it. And the developer wasn't very happy about this. He said, go away. If you want the name, you can pay me $30,000 instead. They refused to pay him, so they got in this big dispute. So he wound up taking his Kick package off of NPM. And so he had 273 other packages on NPM. The problem was that Babel, which is a JavaScript compiler, used his dependency. So when he pulled kick off NPM, all of the millions of websites that used Babel broke because of this naming dispute. So this is one thing to be careful about when we're using NPM. It's all open source, which means if our application is depending on a NPM package and that NPM package disappears, we may have issues with our application. This is one of the differences between NPM and NuGet, which is used by .NET, because Microsoft maintains the NuGet library. But NPM is sort of its own separate entity. And if we use it, it's great, but we're also a little bit at the mercy of what happens in NPM. So you can read the full story. It's kind of entertaining. So this was about 5 years ago. All right. I put a little resource up here for you. We're going to do a coding activity in a minute, but I put a little resource up for you. Which is a node style guide. So I want to take a brief look at this. These are not rules, but this developer put this together about 6 years ago, where he sort of listed the best practices for coding style with Node. So I won't go over all of it. It's here for you as a reference. Now this is old. He said use semicolons, but we tend to use semicolons less. Recommended your lines don't exceed 80 characters. One of the important things is using single quotes for string values is best practice rather than double quotes, unless we're writing JSON. In terms of our curly braces, we open the curly brace at the end of a line, and then the closing curly brace tends to go on its own line. So this is kind of C# style, where each brace is on its own line, but in JavaScript, this is the convention. Naming conventions typically will use camel case or variables, properties, and method names. So this is, again, it's not incorrect, but the convention is to use camel case. Class names, however, should be in upper camel or Pascal case. So they typically start with a capital letter. We use uppercase for constants. We can skip over some of these. This is old. The old style for using a closure was to name the function. We don't really do this anymore. We can also see about chaining methods together, for example. And we've already done this with our HTTP create server and listen, where we chain them together. So this is just here as a guide for you in terms of what's best practice for how your node code should look. So that link is here. You may want to bookmark that link to help guide you in terms of what your code format should look like. Okay. Yes, it's awesome. Okay, we're going to do a little quick coding exercise. I'm going to pause the recording. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to create a JavaScript file in your code editor. You can call it for-loop.js. And what should happen is when this page is loaded, it should use a loop to print the numbers 1 to 20, both in the browser as well as in the console. So I've given you part of the code here, starting here. And what I want you to do is, this is fill in the blank coding. Okay, so I've coded about 80% of the file. I want you to complete it. Okay, so you can copy this code, go to your editor and make this new file, for-loop.js. You should then be able to run the file with the node command. And when you do, it'll print 1 to 20 in your console. And also if you go to localhost 3000, it will also print 1 to 20 in your browser. Okay, this is not for marks, this is for practice. So I'm going to pause the recording, give you about 5 minutes. That should be enough to do this. And then we can kind of walk through the solution together. All right, I will pause my recording here. I will just go over that. I'm sorry. Thanks for reminding me. Yep, I knew it would happen. So if you are doing the lesson on your own time, we've got a complete the node loop exercise up on Blackboard. So I want you to create a JavaScript empty file called forloop.js. Copy this code into it. It's kind of a fill in the blank coding. It starts with the let HTTP line, ends with the listen. So you're going to paste that code in. And then I want you to complete the code, run the for loop file with the node command at your terminal. And when we hit localhost 3000, the page is going to print the numbers 1 to 20, and we're also going to get those numbers in the console. So when you go through this exercise, if you are watching the lesson asynchronously, as I know many of you are. Okay, where are we? So let's go to, I'm going to jump down here. Got a few slides. We're going to look at an NPM package today called Connect. So we've kind of gone over this stuff. We've done our loop exercise. So we're going to work with an NPM package called Connect. So Connect is largely used for HTTP routing. So in the example we just did, we can run a web page using the HTTP module, but it can't process multiple URLs, right? This only runs a single page, the for loop. So notice I haven't even specified a different URL. So Connect is an API, it's a middleware that basically allows us to create a series of callback functions so we can direct user requests. We can respond, we can take an HTTP request and then decide what kind of response we want. So it uses this object called the dispatcher, and the dispatcher looks at each HTTP request by the server and then decides what should happen, what kind of response should come back depending on the request. So next week we're going to use another NPM package called Express, but Express is actually based on Connect. So we're kind of doing like the simple version with Connect this week. We'll do the more sort of fuller expanded version with Express from next week and moving forward. So we're going to try a really simple example using Connect that will create a web page running on localhost 3000. And you'll notice the code, by using Connect instead of the HTTP module, the code is quite a bit simpler. So we're going to install Connect. We create a Connect application this way. So we're calling the constructor to create an instance of a Connect object. And then we simply call app.listen. And this will allow our application to load in the browser at localhost 3000. So we're going to try this first. Now, I've been working so far in my lesson 1 folder. I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to get out of this and make a lesson 3 project. So in my code editor, I'm going to make a new project, which I'm going to call lesson 3. Whoops, actually, I should probably stop my server. I've done that. Okay. Sorry, new project, which I will call lesson 3. So we're going to try Connect, and we're going to use this really simple example. So I'm going to go ahead and make a file in here, make a new JavaScript file, which I'll just call server. Go ahead and do that. Now, before we can try this code out, we have to do something. What will we need to do in our project before we can try out the code sample from my slide? Yeah, absolutely, Adam. This isn't going to work until we install Connect. You got it, Chris. Yep, you're right. So in the terminal, let's open up my terminal. I'm going to run npm I Connect. We're not installing it globally. We're just installing it in the lesson 3 project. So you can use I, or you can use the whole word install, doesn't matter. npm I Connect, npm install Connect. So I'll hit enter. And now we can try this little code sample. So we're going to link to Connect. Okay. Now, this is one of the other nice things about WebStorm. I'm going to ignore this warning. It's saying our module is not listed. We have no package.json. And it actually prompts us to install it. But it's okay. We've already installed. We'll deal with package.json in a bit. Create new instance of a Connect application. And the new keyword is not required. Okay, so we're instantiating an instance of a Connect object. And then we can say, start the web server on port 3000. So we just call app.listen on port 3000. Then we can print out a message here, Connect server running. So this functionally does the same thing as the HTTP library when we used http.createServer, but our code is a little lighter and it's got much more functionality. So there's our simple example. So I'm going to launch this right now. and we can try it out. So I'll just run node server at my command line. Tells me the Connect server is running on port 3000. So our console.log statement from line 10 is run. And now if I refresh localhost 3000, okay, well, we get this error, but the server, it's running. We get this cannot get message, which we'll deal with. So this result, this is the expected result at this stage. Okay, so here's our code so far. Link to Connect, create a new Connect application, tell it to listen for requests on port 3000 and print a message. So in our browser, we've got this cannot get message. So this is what we get. How come? Why do you suppose we have this cannot get message? What does this error mean? Yeah, there's no, yeah, Adam, that's right. We're making an HTTP request, but there's no code written yet to handle that request. So Connect uses this similar parameters to the HTTP server. It uses a request object, a response object. There's also this optional next object. So if we want to set an order, when a request comes in, we want to send a response, but then we want to call another function. We have like a sequence or an order of events. We don't use next very much. We'll mostly ignore it. So what we need to do is we need to map requests somehow. So when a request comes in, we need some kind of callback function to handle that request and send a response. So let's try this quickly and then we'll take a break. So our app is going to listen. So we are going to set a function to handle a request at the root path. So I'll create a function called index. It's going to take a callback with a request and a response. Sorry, that's two opening brackets. And then we've got our lambda expression. So in here, we'll write a 200 header. Response that says hello homepage. So we're going to write a 200 header in the response. We're going to write some text and we're going to call end. So let's try this now. See what happens. Oops. I probably should have I got to stop my server and restart. I should have used NodeMon. I'm going to hit Control C. to stop the server. This time I'm going to start it, but I'm going to use nodemon instead. So our server will automatically do a reload. So I can just run nodemon server. But we still got this message. Still get cannot get. So we've set up our function, and now we need to set up our URL mapping. So we're going to say app.use. So any requests that come at our root path So any requests that come in at localhost 3000 just with a slash, they're then sent to our index method. So I'll save that change. Nodemon will restart. And now we get this response. So when we get a request at localhost 3000, our index function gets called. So with Connect, we manually have to map a URL to a function, a callback function, where we can take that incoming request and then we can send an HTTP response back. Okay, now we're going to do some more with this. It'll become a little more clear as we build this file out. We want to map different URLs in this application to different functions. So if we pass in different URLs, we're going to get different responses in the browser. And this is the way routing with Connect and Express will work. So the URLs don't magically go somewhere. We manually have to map them like this. All right, it is 5 to 12. I will need to step away for a few minutes. So let's take a 10-minute break here. And then we'll come back. We'll do some more experimenting with this file so that we can get a better feel for exactly how this Connect routing works. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break here.